Hello and welcome to another MoxiTalk. I'm Matthew Ferrara on behalf of MoxiWorks, and I'm your host today as we have another great insightful conversation with some industry experts on one of the most important topics facing our industry every day, and that is staying engaged with our sphere of influence. Engagement with our sphere of influence is really the source of all of our present and future business, and those companies and individual salespeople who master the art of staying in flow with their sphere are also going to generate more business more cost effectively over the long term. And we have some wonderful guests today who will explore various ways in which staying in contact is easier than ever, using some amazing technologies and some strategies that have been proven time and time again to be very, very effective. Thanks for taking the time today to invest in yourself and watching our program. And if you are watching on the recording, please keep in mind that if you have any questions or other comments, you can reach out to us by email. We'll always be happy to follow up. Well, let's get started with our conversation here today if we can. Our focus, as I said, is staying in flow or endless engagement and the importance of staying connected to our customers and clients after the transaction. While we know how important it is to stay in contact as we're nurturing new relationships and turning them into business, it's equally as important to make sure that that business sticks around, not only for referrals, but for repeat business in the short and long term. And so to explore this issue a little bit more, I've got a wonderful panel of guests who will take a variety of different perspectives on the topic. So let me introduce them to you, and then we'll jump into the conversation. Our three guests today are Mike Malinowski, the Chief Revenue Officer at Milestones Labs, and you're going to love hearing about their new super app. Paul Smith, the General Manager of the mortgage channel at ActivePipe, that is now actually part of the MoxiWorks family, and Samantha Tino, the Strategic Account Executive at MoxiWorks, who will talk to us a little bit about some of the unique products inside of MoxiWorks that will help us accomplish this ever important task of staying in flow. So I'm going to kick off with my friend Mike. I'm going to ask him to tell us a little bit about himself and about Milestone Labs, and then focus on the issue of staying in contact with our sphere well after the transaction. Thanks for being with us, Mike.
Thanks, Matthew. Really excited to be here. This actually is one of my favorite topics, consumer engagement. It all goes back to the National Association of Realtors statistic that's been around for about 4 years, that about 89% of consumers that were interviewed after closing a transaction actually said they would love to work with their real estate agent and their loan officer if and when they bought another home. And the staggering statistic is about 13% of them actually do. And what that tells us as an industry is we're still very transactional, which means we still chase the next deal, or we got 5 in front of us, and we don't have, great systems and tools in place maybe 5-6 years ago that could help us stay connected to consumer. And I think you're going to hear today from all 3 of us that we do have really good tools that help solve that problem. We all hate the old saying, you sold a house to a friend or a neighbor, and then 3 or 5 years later, you drive down the street and somebody else's sign is in the yard. Like, that's like a dagger in the heart that you didn't stay in touch with that person and somebody else came along and got that listing and sold that house for you. So what Milestones Labs is all about is an interactive product. It's not one direction. It's not one-sided. It's not one-dimensional. It is truly an interactive, collaborative platform that has a lot of different things in it that nudges the consumer back time and time again. So Milestone's whole platform is based upon value for the consumer that brings the agent and the loan officer along for the ride and gets the loan officer and the agent the next deal time and time again. And the beauty of the platform is it's not just retroactive, it's proactive. So as the consumer is coming back to the platform and doing things like checking their home value or their equity or doing services on their house, because we all know that everybody that owns a home has many things that they have to do to it, whether it be servicing their appliances or getting a new roof, or they want to build a deck or a pool. We have applications in there that helps them through everything they need to do to manage their home. And what the cool thing about our platform is as we nudge those consumers come back and they interact with our tools, loan officers and agents get alerted when there's things that they do in the platform that could be predictive that they're potentially back in market. For instance, let's say they look at getting a pre-qual, or they need to take cash out of their home. Agents and loan officers can be alerted and be proactive to engage back with the consumer in advance of them making any buying or selling, moving decisions. That's new in this industry, is being proactive only the last couple of years. So being top of mind with the consumer and having the agent and loan officer be engaged is empirical right now for our industry. The other thing we do really well in this industry with compressed commissions is brokers are really checking their bottom line. What are they spending money on? Where's the ROI coming from? Is it working? Is it not working? So getting back to consumer engagement and being a collaborative tool where the consumer can invite different people in. As they're going through this journey, the broker gets to promote their products, their services that drive revenue for them. So rather than relying on the agent to hopefully send that email out or hopefully promote those in-house services, the consumer can actually self-serve, getting a pre-qual, getting a new loan, getting a refinance, maybe shopping insurance, maybe changing home equity, or even changing home ownership warranties. So all those tools and services are in our platform, and we bring the agent and the loan officer along for the ride throughout their entire home journey.
So Mike, let me just make sure that this is, because I think this is really a critical part of what you're doing with Milestones. The real issue here is the collaborative nature of it, right? Well, this is an opportunity where the living in the home becomes as important as the buying or selling of a home in the relationship between the buyers who become sellers, homeowners, and the agent. And so as those years go by and the sellers are logging in for all of these kinds of ongoing value propositions, the agent is still there, right? They're still in the center of the conversation. They're aware of it. And then specifically this area where the system is now prompting the agent of good times to be in contact other than just, oh, the standard holidays and seasonal changes and once every 6 months type of cadences. So this becomes really much more relevant contacts and specific contacts to each individual in their database and in their book of business. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so the platform is not a one size fits all. Every consumer, and there's about 5 or 6 different cohorts of consumers. Some consumers are going to be very interested in their finances in their home, right? Other people are going to be very interested in the maintenance in their home. Other consumers are going to be interested in what's going on with my neighborhood that is affecting the value of my home, and so on and so forth. Milestones was built on a platform that is not just for real estate and mortgage, it's for any life event. So as they're going through their journey, they can invite their mother, their father, sisters, brothers, a spouse or significant other, and they can all talk and chat and have conversations. They can share documents. It's all permission based. So what I want to show my significant other may not be what I want to show my loan officer. And you go through this life journey of what should I do? I got my hot water heater just went out. One, we can enact a service provider that's preferred right there in the system, but you can also say, mom or dad or significant other, what do you think about this? Like, is this a good price? So we have a lot of tools in our industry that are kind of point solutions that do 1 or 2 or 3 of these. We put them all in one place. So think about like mint.com or TD Ameritrade. Like those are things that you use to manage your finances. Now consumers finally have a platform that they can manage everything about their home and invite people in to collaborate about it.
And the interesting thing here is that you're now moving that agent into that powerful position of being an advisor, a long-term advisor, not only on the buying and selling, the transacting of property, but the living in it, the maintenance of it, the experience of it. And this, of course, increases not only their value, but strengthens the relationship over the many years in between those two bookends of when they bought it the last time and they sell it the next time.
Yes, absolutely, Matthew. There's a couple of key points here. One is if you have 1,000 people in your database, only 1% are transacting at any given time. So what are you doing with the other 99%? You need a tool like this that's collaborative, interactive, that is of value to the consumers, that the agents and the loan officers are branded to, that they will be along for the journey the whole time. The other point is that real estate agents have always been the local market expert. And when you bring in the word advisory, now you bring in what's interesting is the house is the most, for many, it's the most valued asset they'll ever own. It's more than some people's 401ks. It's more than their stock portfolio. But all those other vertical markets have advisors that are helping them pick those stocks and plan for retirement. So now finally, like you said, those bookends have come together. And now there's platforms and there's tools that you're going to hear about consumer engagement today with our panelists, including Milestones, that helps bring those bookends together, that keeps the agent in the advisory position throughout the entire home ownership journey.
Thanks, Mike. Those are really, really good ideas. And I think that a lot of people will find Milestones quite capable of helping them stay in the center of that relationship. I want to
Thanks,
move
Matt.
on now to our friend Paul Smith. He's the general manager of the mortgage channel at ActivePipe. ActivePipe is now powered by MoxiWorks, and he's going to tell us a little bit about himself and also where he works, because he's going to add a little bit of a global perspective on the need to stay in contact with people long after the deal is done. Paul, thanks for being with us.
Matthew, thank you kindly. It's a pleasure to be here. ActivePipe is a marketing automation platform, and we've been in the Australian market for several years now. And now that we're working with MoxiWorks, we've begun to look much closer at the North American market. Specifically, obviously, we've been in the real estate market for quite a while, but the product I manage works with mortgage brokers. And what I'm here to talk to you guys today about is how we help solve the problems brokers have in Australia. And a lot of those same problems are ones we see in North America as well. And going and sort of piggybacking on a lot of what Mike just said, talking about, a mortgage broker's database. Your database is always going to be full of all different kinds of people, leads you might not be able to convert, or clients that you maybe did a purchase for, or a refinancing deal, or maybe you help them with an investment property. So your database is sort of just a smorgasbord of all different kinds of people that are going to have different needs from you and are going to want to hear different things from you. And when you take a further step back from that, you look at sort of the health of any business is really benchmarked on sort of the acquisition of new customers. And for many independent mortgage brokers who don't get outside help from maybe a larger head office, these mortgage brokers are really good at maybe writing their own deals, but they're not really good at marketing themselves. But they kind of know, and everyone sort of knows, with the right strategy, your database can really be that source of acquisition, that source of ongoing acquisition to continue to grow your business. And on the flip side of that, though, if you're not doing any work to stay in touch with your customers, you run the very real risk of not being their mortgage broker for the next transaction. And one of the beauties of a mortgage broker's database is that, you've already done all that hard work to acquire, at least a name and a phone number and an email address. But hopefully you've got a whole lot more information about them, the type of property they're looking at, how much they're borrowing, how much money they make, a whole bunch more information that allows you to have a way more intimate conversation with that person than maybe a competitor is going to have by just showing them an ad. So going back to what I was saying before, like a lot of brokers we work with, they're focused on just doing what they're good at, writing deals, getting a deal lodged, settled, and approved. And that takes a lot of skill, and that's not easy. And they tell us, look, I just don't have time to talk to anyone in your database. And that's totally understandable, but it is still a problem. And that's why using sort of a marketing platform that's built specifically for your industry can take all the heavy lifting out of staying in touch with your database. And it's all well and good to build automations and emails and things that go out to your database to make your life easier. But if what you're sending people isn't of value to them, then it's all really going to be for nothing. And one of the things we've spent a lot of time on at ActivePipe in Australia, and we're beginning to do this in North America, is we run focus groups and user testing sessions to learn about what people want to hear about from their broker. What are the kinds of things that are going to keep them loyal to their broker to use them for the next transaction? Or what are the other kind of things that maybe actually disconnect the broker from that borrower, or maybe unsubscribe them from their database? And at the highest level, it really comes down to people just care about three things. How can you save me time? How can you save me money? How can you improve my situation? And Matthew, when I was talking earlier about the data a broker has in their database, that data allows you just to have a really in-depth, automated in many ways communication journey with a client, talking about, hey, look, you now have 40% equity in your house. You have this much money to play with. Here's 4 properties in an area you were telling us you were looking at that you can afford at this interest rate. Or your interest rate is now this, your equity position is here. We can knock 50 basis points off of that. So there are some really amazing ways you can use that data you've put all that hard work and effort into creating, into plugging it into a marketing automation platform like ActivePipe, where we can help you take that conversation to the next level. So it's not content where you're sending a newsletter or you're sending a recipe or even talking about awards you've won. You know, the focus groups we run, that really shows people's appetite for sales-like material is just at an all-time low. If you're sending out promotional or spammy things and you're beating your own chest, people are going to unsubscribe from you. All people want to hear about are things relevant to their own life, how they can save money, how their situation can improve, and how you can help their plans in the future.
Paul, one of the key elements here is really that combination of relevant content and the automation. Talk to us briefly about the automation aspect to it. What makes it so easy to manage even a fairly high volume of people in a database using ActivePipe? And then I want to come back and ask you another question just about email in general. But I don't want to miss this important aspect of really what makes ActivePipe so powerful.
Yeah, and so a lot of really what it comes down to is combining three things: the really powerful data a broker can gather and put into a CRM about a client on day one when a loan happens, an automation platform that can talk to a client about that, but then also us being able to go out into the market and gather predictive things about what's going to happen with that property they own. So we can look at a property they own and say, hey, it's now worth this, tying that to data that's in their CRM and creating a communication journey on that. So that is something we can automate by bringing together sort of 2 or 3 different worlds into one. And the mortgage broker doesn't have to do anything other than just understand that it's set up and that what we're sending is working, and knowing what we're emailing to the client. So it's really just taking advantage of that data you've got. And that data about the client's financial position they have in their CRMs is really good at a certain point of time. But after about a year or two, it's out of date. And nobody really knows what the client is doing. So you've got to look at external data sources. And Moxi's got a lot of really good platforms like this where we can look at, what a property is worth or how are suburbs trending, tie that into information we see in the CRM, and start to paint a bit of a picture around the client's position and what they might be able to do.
It's very powerful. Let me ask you this question, because ActivePipe, of course, is an email product in many ways, and email sounds old school, but from everything we see, all the research, all of the insights from, real use cases from our clients, we find that hands down, email continues to perform, sometimes outperform all the other fancier channels today. I know it's easy to get very excited about, making a video clips and tweeting and using all the various forms of social media, all of which have a role to play. But nobody is still outperforming the open rate, the read rate, the forwarding rate, the reply rate of, really powerful, well-constructed, automated email. Tell us about that.
Yeah, and we see a lot of that in Australia, and we see the real life examples of it. And the one big thing with email is, especially from it being a cost-effective point of view, is you've already done all the hard work in acquiring that name and email address. You don't have to pay again to get that impression, to get that click, to get eyeballs on something you're going to want to send them. Because at the end of the day, no matter what we're doing, you're grabbing attention on something that's popping up on a smartphone or popping up on a computer, whether they're on an app or whether they're in social or anything. Something's popping up on their phone. So with email, you're not having to pay to play to get in front of people. One of the great things we know with email, especially with mortgage brokers, is the relationship between a borrower and a broker is really tight. There's a lot of trust, and there's a really authentic relationship there where they enjoy hearing from one another. And the majority of borrowers look forward to hearing from their mortgage broker when their mortgage broker is sending them content that's valuable to them. And a lot of the research we run, and we've done so many tests on what's the right time of day, or what's the right time of what day of the week is the best to send. But there's only really one major factor that we've found that influences if someone's going to open an email or not. It's whether or not they know who's sending it to them. And with mortgage brokers and a lot of financial professionals, these people know these people. So they're going to open emails this time because they like them and they hear from them. And if what they're sending them is of value, they're going to continue to always open it. So email is just a really cost-effective way to continue to get in front of the eyeballs of the people in your database.
It sounds like a terrific strategy to maintain that relationship and even expand that relationship. And Paul, thanks for being with us on this. And I know that Paul has been focused on the mortgage side of it, but whether it's the mortgage or the residential transaction side of it, I think the rules are pretty much the same. So I'm excited now to go over to Samantha Tino, who is our strategic account executive at MoxiWorks. And she's going to talk to us not only about this topic of staying in contact, staying in flow with your sphere, but two different unique ways that MoxiWorks platform makes it possible to have relevancy, communicate great content, and then, of course, take that relationship to the next level. Samantha, thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Matthew. I appreciate the introduction. I'm excited to be here today to talk about the MoxiWorks neighborhood newsletter that's in our MoxiEngage CRM solution. It's a great way for agents to stay in flow and in touch with their sphere of influence by an automated monthly newsletter that goes out with a market update about their particular property and what's going on in their neighborhood. It provides all kinds of market statistics specific to them. I personally get this email on a monthly basis, and ever since the market boom in the last 24 months in my area, I show it to my spouse and say, "What do you think? Should we list our home?" Of course, he shuts me down every time, but he's like, but it's such a great way to send value to your consumers, to stay in touch. As Mike mentioned earlier, the NAR statistic is 89% of buyers and sellers, when they close a transaction on a home, say that they're going to use their agent. But fast forward 7 to 10 years when they actually transact, and only 13% are actually using that particular agent that they used in the past. So it's super important that you stay connected with your sphere of influence, that you sense something of value. As Paul had mentioned, the most valuable asset to a broker or an agent is their database. And so you have a perfect opportunity to provide a valuable newsletter that's automated, that's branded, and specific to them and their particular home and their neighborhood.
So let me stop you there for a second, because while neighborhood news is a powerful, content-rich email, so in many ways it picks up on what Paul was saying, and it's relevant to the consumer because it's centered on their home, I want to just pick up on something you kind of snuck in there, because while we are all talking about the need to stay in flow and stay in contact long after the transaction, I don't think a lot of people really realize how long that is these days. I mean, there was a time 10 or 15 years ago when we used to say, oh, people will buy and sell approximately every 5 to 7 years. But long since the last financial downturn, that number has continued to get bigger and bigger, and now is averaging 7 to 10 years. That clearly represents a much harder lift, a much more work, a different strategy for people to stay in contact for that amount of time, because that sale will be just as valuable in 10 years. And along the way, there's a lot of referrals to be had there as well. How does neighborhood news accomplish that specifically in terms of making sure there's an important chance for connection between that agent and that homeowner, potential future seller, for such a long time?
Excellent question, Matthew. I think that it definitely positions the agent in a way that they are connected with their consumer. They know what's going on in their neighborhood. They look like an expert in that area by this automated newsletter going out. So it just gives a perception to the consumer that they know what's going on and they're a trusted, reliable source over the course of a long-term sales cycle, so to speak. I have a real estate agent friend that says her most valuable client in her database is someone that's never transacted with her, but they've referred her more customers than anyone in her entire database because she uses the neighborhood newsletter tool. And this particular customer in her MoxiEngage database gets it every month and loves it, and just loves the connection that she has with this real estate agent, and refers her tons of business annually because of that.
You know, one of the key things that I also think is relevant here is that it's automated, that all of this localized information, the stats, the facts, the neighborhood drill down at a very hyper local level is pertinent to every address, but it's automated. So whether you have 50 people in your database, 500 people in your database or more, and they're all connected into neighborhood news, you know, it's really leveraging the lift of technology to create that, you know, very specific conversation, or at least conversation starter, as you're sort of saying here, with each one of the individuals. So it's not just a generic message to 500 people. It is a hyper specific, personalized message to each one of them. And as you said, it's branded to that agent. So it's extremely powerful. I want to move us forward to the next topic, which is the Home Sales Predictor by MoxiWorks. This is a really powerful tool, and it's a little bit different. This one's sort of internal facing to us here in the industry. I look at it as a way in which we as salespeople and brokers can not only gain insights, but get some encouragement, if you will, because it describes a very special relationship between what we can do and what's happening in the marketplace. Talk to us, tell us about what the Home Sales Predictor does, how it works, and then how it could be a powerful internal tool for us.
Absolutely. Well, I think when we're in a time where there's a lot of uncertainty going on in the housing market and real estate brokerages, agents are starting to get nervous. They are seeing a dip in their home sales because there's not as much inventory. Even if they have a lot of buyers out there that they're ready to work with, they're starting to read the narrative in the news. And we all know the news creates panic, so don't listen to it. But we have this fabulous tool that broker owners and managers of real estate brokerages can use as a leadership tool to continue to run their brokerage operations and encourage their agents to go out and get listing presentations, to be able to leverage our Home Sales Predictor in our Moxi Present solution as a presentation to show this amazing trend data in real estate, as well as leverage it in our MoxiEngage platform in our email marketing solution. So they can use this as a tool to get out, continue to get in front of customers and potential home sellers, showcasing what's going on in the marketplace, potential, predict future sales, and be able to share that information with potential sellers.
So one of the things that makes the Home Sales Predictor unique is that, unlike other indexes that are out there in the general media or in the research areas of the National Association of Realtors, et cetera, is that this isn't just an extrapolation of trends, right? We're not just saying, here's what's happened month over month or quarter over quarter. There's something happening with the MoxiWorks Home Sales Predictor that says, based on how many presentations are being made and how many CMAs are being generated, we predict this is the direction of home listings and home sales. In other words, it's almost a wonderful way to quantify the relationship between listing presentations and CMAs and the future state of inventory. Now, when I think about that, this to me seems like a very powerful coaching tool, whether I'm reading it for myself or I'm an office manager or an owner looking at this and sort of, helping my salespeople see the relationship between presentations and more inventory. Talk to us about that.
100% agree with you on that. I think that when people start to panic, they freeze and they do nothing. They stop doing the things that they do best, which is getting in front of potential home sellers to sell their properties. So to be able to, you can do in the office, the brokers can do some kind of agent competition so that they can, encourage them, get in front of 5 of your friends and say, hey, we have this CMA tool. I would love to show it to you. And within the CMA, include the Home Sales Predictor. And when people aren't maybe hyper-focused on paying attention to their home values and what they could get for it, it can strike a change in what they were originally planning. I have a friend of mine that literally just sold her house a week ago. She wasn't planning on it, but she was like, this positions us so well for our financial goals for retirement that we decided to go for it. And they had no intention of selling their home. So to be able to leverage a tool like this and get out there and show, look, agents, if we do these things, we do what we do best, which is get in front of people and do listing presentations. Your home sales or an increased in, listing inventory is going to be there, but you have to do the work. You can't sit and freeze in a time when the market's getting a little bit, concerning for some. There's a lot of movement out there. You just have to do the work. We're not in a time where we're order takers anymore in our industry. Brokers need to be leaders and step up and lead, and agents need to be out there on their phones, sending email marketing automation through ActivePipe or Milestones or the MoxiEngage platform. And they need to be doing CMA presentations with this powerful data.
I think there's no question in my mind that this is definitely a great way to see the direct results of our efforts. I think we've all said in one way or another that the future state of inventory, the future of bringing new business into the marketplace, depends on whether we're staying in contact with them, in flow with them, or we're even being prompted by our technology to stay in contact with our sphere of influence. And then when we do reach out, contact, and present to them, we are directly having an impact on future sales. And so I think all of these things come together quite nicely. Thanks for being with us, Samantha. And thanks to all of our guests today. Super excited to have been able to spend some time with Mike Malinowski, the Chief Revenue Officer at Milestones Labs, Paul Smith, General Manager of the Mortgage Channel at ActivePipe, part of MoxiWorks now, and Samantha Tino, our Strategic Account Executive at MoxiWorks. MoxiWorks, so wonderful to hear these insights and to see how they connect to products that are proven in the marketplace to already be making a difference. Thanks to all of you who have been watching today's session. We appreciate you spending the time. We hope you share the recording with others, and you certainly let them know about our future sessions as well. Just keep an eye on our landing page for those dates and watch some of the past recordings of our insightful conversations with many different leading guests across our industries around the world. On behalf of MoxiWorks, I've been your host, Matthew Ferrara. Thanks for being with us, and we look forward to seeing you next time.